Hello, everybody. This is another episode of Chatting with Asta. Today, I have a good friend of mine, Vera. And if you see this show, basically, I am exploring different conversations with different people as an inspirational and informational resource. And if you're enjoying the show, don't forget to thumbs up, comment, subscribe, share, and let's keep this conversation going. And today on my show, like I said, I have my friend Vera Casaca, and
Hi, Asta.
she is a screenwriter and director and just overall wonderful person. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Asta. I'm so excited to talk to you today, really. I really am. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. It's you and I have been friends for so many years now that I don't even know how we haven't had the face to face before. It's just so
I know, it's crazy. I don't know. We never managed. And even when I was in New York, we did not manage to
yeah,
meet each other personally, which is a shame. But
yeah. It's but you are also of the admirers of my other guest, Shabbat Mitchell. We both worked with
yes, I am.
the Creative Outsiders. So yeah, and I'll make sure to
Yeah,
link.
I love her platform. It's just she's doing such an incredible work with the creative outsiders, and she's just trying to connect all of these women in film. And I think she's just I'm very inspired by women like her and like you, really, trying to create this sense of community. I think it's so beautiful. Yeah, so I really appreciate both of you girls.
We appreciate you. It's so important. I mean, we met through the internet and just through the various things that we had in common, liking in film. But it is so important to have a context to seeing women in roles of leadership in film. And you're such an ally. Do you have any female inspirations in film that brought you here to the first place?
Um, Not really. I have a very strange, my path was very non-linear
Yeah, yeah.
coming to film, actually. But I would say nowadays, because I see how much she works for building her own empire, I would say Ava DuVernay. I think she's a
Oh,
great example right now.
yes.
For several reasons, because she also started directing a bit later. Yeah, later. She was 30, 32, or whatnot. And the way that she's developing her career as a creative, as a woman in leader, having this leadership role, and also creating her production company, all of that motivates me a lot. And I think it opens my mind and my eye, thinking this is possible as well for me. Yeah.
Yeah. She's also very much about finding the social purpose in her art. Like it's not just about creating for creating's sake, but she does have a big imagination. But like just the work that she's done, she knows the way she can teach empathy to others, how she can illuminate subjects that are socially active, and that's really important. And especially coming from a woman, I think that that's a voice that we want to hear.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's a very important point, but also the fact that she hires a lot of female directors. I think she has a couple of shows, right? Queen Sugar or something like that. I know she runs a few shows, and the majority of them, if not all, are ran by women.
Yeah,
So she's putting a stamp in this on this path for women, which I think it's so important. When we have that opportunity to choose and to choose our team, I think it's so important to also invite other women in.
yeah, yes.
Like directors of photography, directors, gaffers, everything.
Yeah, and not just like I think that one of the arguments that's always made about women in film is, inexperience. And I think that women need to be given the opportunity to have experiences and to fail and to learn from failure. Whereas I feel like it's so much more immediate that I see men be offered feature film directorial debuts after only having done a music video. But a woman needs to write a screenplay, direct, produce multiple projects before she's ever even noticed, you know?
Oh, I definitely. I read a lot of articles about that, and I also read two books. One was Backwards and in Heels. I don't know if you heard about that book. It talks about all of these women that were associated with film and that created film. Actually, there were a lot of women in the beginning of filmmaking, more than it is, more women than there exists now, actually. And a lot of studies show that a guy can fail on his first feature film
Yeah,
and he will be given a second chance. He's more likely to being given a second chance. But if you're a woman, it's a bit harder.
yeah, yeah. I think that Anne Hathaway said a few years ago that she realized that whenever men fail on a film scale, that they always look for the potential, but whenever women fail, they always focus on the failure. And I think that that's interesting because
But,
failure is how you learn. No, like I just think that's great. But being this very learned advocate for women in film, and you are your own creative, and you're very you directed a few films. The Was it On the Telephone with God is the English translation of the title, and
yeah.
If Poirot Was Here. Do you want to talk
Mhm.
about those projects? I know one is more surrealist, and one is more like farcical comedy. So they're very
Yeah,
yeah
yeah. Both of them are comedies, but let me just step back a little.
yeah
Um, Actually, when I went to study cinema, I went to study script writing.
yeah
But I very soon learned that if I wanted to have my project made, I would need to become a director.
yes
So that's why I became a director because I was just thinking, oh, okay, shit, I have this stuff written,
yeah
and what is going to happen? Nobody's going to direct it.
yeah
So I was like, okay. I started to think about all of the opportunities, and I said, okay, I need to find a course that I can learn the basics of directing, and that's what I did. That's when I went to the School of Visual Arts, and I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll just do it. I will just direct my own films. I don't have much experience, but I'll do it.
yeah
And then when I came back to Portugal, I had the opportunity to direct On the Phone We Got,
yes
and which was a very tough project. We had very limited budget, very limited budget. It was a very excruciating project, actually, because it was a very small production company, but it was a very big team, very large team. We had a big animal. It was very hot. All of these conditions, and actually, I had never been on a real set of film. It was my very first time, and it was my own film, and I was so nervous I could not even sleep during the pre-production and production because I knew everyone on set had more experience than I did. But I think that's how you grow and you develop. And it was really, really tough, Asta, because the pressure was so big. It was such a large team that I think on the third day I was just crying on set, but like I hid myself behind a tree so nobody would see it. But it was really tremendous amount of pressure. But it was beautiful now that I look back. That okay, I did it despite of not having all of the tools and all of the knowledge. I'm happy that I did it. Yeah.
you and honestly, like before my first time, I had just acted on sets, but there's so much you don't always know, and you really only learn from being thrown into something. And I think that I had an emotional reaction as well, and as you did, but I think that's probably because we just cared so much about it going well, and you especially because you wrote it down, and you wanted it to come to life in the way that you pictured it, right? And I know that in my experience, I wrote it as well, but there were things that in the moment I had to just let go, be like, okay, we can't do that. Okay, we'll do this. Like you just this perfectionist inside you gets kind of, you realize
Yeah,
that
of
it's not
course.
just,
It's her little baby, and everybody was working so hard that I also fell for my
yeah,
team. And yeah, I worried about the product. I worried that whether my team was okay or not, whether the actors were okay or not. Yeah, because the circumstances that we shot were really harsh, really were. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it kind of reminded me of like kind of a spaghetti western style, just
Yeah.
like look of it. And so that obviously you have to deal with the elements, you have to deal with the kind of costuming, the different issues there. And I mean, hats off to you. You got it done. You got it done.
We got it done. I never say I got it done. I always
Neat. That's
appreciate my team so much. I always say we did it somehow.
yeah.
Yeah.
I,
The second project, but that one is, I think it's more risky. Because it's a western and it's spoken in Portuguese and it's a comedy and it has some surreal elements
yeah.
of logic and fantasy. So I think, yeah, that project it's a bit more of yeah, I think it's a bit of a bigger a gamble. How can I put it? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
The the second project, again, I didn't have um, much resources, so I decided to shoot in my house. So the second film, which is If Poirot Was Here, is shot inside of my house. But again, it's like if you want to really work on a project and you have very limited means regarding money, budget, location, everything, you just find ways to do it.
yeah,
And yeah, I thought of that and I was like, oh, hell with it. I'll just shoot in my house. I'm
yeah,
going to write something that is very low budget, but that I can work on my craft slowly but surely.
yeah, yeah. I think writing within limitations has been the ultimate indie film way to go about things. You create an exercise of, all right, if you have one set, one location, two, three actors, what can you do? Right? That's like the minimum you can do. And I mean that's something that I always try to think about, and sometimes I can be a little ambitious, but yeah. And you also have been just working on writing, and how did your journey start with writing? I do know I read your interview with Siobhan. I want to know more about this story with NASA. You want to tell people about that?
Oh my God. Sure. It's a very funny story and it's something that is very dear to my heart. So for for I come from a very tiny village or city. Actually, used to live in a small village. Well, now I'm living in a village. I used to live in a small city, and there was just this random competition on the radio saying that you could write a fiction story, and they would take you to NASA. But for me, it would be something so outstanding that I never thought I would win. Like
Yeah,
honestly, because I was too young, um, and I was just happy to write the story.
yeah,
And I sent the story to the radio. And I'm so old school that back in the days I did not even have internet, so I just checked the requirements later on, and they said, "Oh, you have to write it on a laptop or whatever in a computer format." Of course, and I written by hand, 12 pages by hand. So I was like, okay, I didn't win for sure. Months later, they called me, and I could not remember. Really, I could not remember that I had applied myself in this competition. And they said, "Yeah, you're going to fly to the United States, and you're going to visit NASA." And I was crying, I was bawling, and I could not. And my mom said, "What happened? What happened? Why are you bawling?" Because I could not tell anyone. I'm very shy and I'm introvert, and when I'm ambitious, but I never tell anyone anything. And I'd never told my parents that I applied to this competition. And my mom said, "What happened?" And I said, "Oh, Mom, it's just like a dream came true." And she's like, "Are you going to the States?" Because I always wanted to visit the United States. And I said, yes, I'm going to the United States. I'm going to NASA. And yeah, I think that was the first time I've written really a project and a story in characters. I was 17. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Wow, that's so incredible. I grew up near NASA in Houston. So,
Oh, I went to Florida.
oh, Florida, Florida, got it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's wow, that's so cool. I mean, and that being like your first visit to the United States, and I mean, that's incredible. I know that my mom, she visited the United States before moving here when she was about that age, and she went to Statue of Liberty in New York. She visited Chicago, so she got to see like kind of the best of the best. But yeah, things are really really different right now. How have you been holding up in general? I mean, you're in Portugal right now, correct?
I'm in Portugal right now. I was in New York City. Actually, I was in Texas. I did a road trip about a year and a half ago. I was there.
Yeah,
Um, but now I've been here. But I always want to go back to New York,
yeah,
and but right now I'm in Portugal. I'm trying to hold up. You know, Asta, it's very tough times everywhere.
yeah,
It's not just in the United States. It's everywhere. It's here in Europe,
yeah,
just worldwide. And it's tough. I'm a bit anxious about everything, but I'm trying my best. I'm doing like gratitude journals. I'm trying to meditate and I'm doing yoga. I think it's very helpful as well. Because as an artist, I suffer with a lot of anxiety,
yeah,
but just the current situation is just it's just difficult, and I have to talk about it. I'm really
yeah.
sorry to bring this up, but I have to talk about the George Floyd situation. It has very big repercussions worldwide. It's not just the United States. It also had here in Portugal, and I feel it a lot because my father passed away 2.5 years ago, and he was a black man, and yeah, we struggle with racism, and we have conversations inside of our house and growing up being a daughter of a mixed race couple. And yeah, I'm struggling with it right now, but I'm trying to shed some light on the subject, talk with a few of my friends that are open.
Yes,
Not all of them are open. Um, and I think we have to keep the conversation,
yes,
really.
yeah. And I've been having these conversations even with close friends in my you know community, the Latin community. Like there is a huge prevalence of um, yes, racism, but under that umbrella, colorism, like the
Hmm.
different layers of darkness and this sense of superiority. And it's a sensitive subject for me because I have always recognized my privilege. I have always grown up knowing that some reason I get treated better than my own mother. Some reason people will treat me like Daisy Duke, like just like the sweet. And then I have experienced prejudice, but it is there are repercussions that I feel people will it resonates because it's something that should not have happened, and we live in an age where things are witnessed and recorded and verified, and so it's like kind of our duty as storytellers to continue to share those stories, continue to talk about what they mean, and find ways to translate them. Like how many more allegories can we make? How many more, George Orwell 1984 Animal Farm type stories can we tell?
Right.
We have to be direct now. And I think it's good that you brought up Ava because I feel like she is direct. She picks real stories, real stories, or she picks classic fiction and turns it on its head. And I think it's important to talk about it for sure. I mean, it's and anxiety is unfortunately like something that is a double-edged sword as an artist, right? It kind of fuels you, but it can
Yeah.
also cause issue. Like it can make it difficult to process so much, you know?
It's difficult when it paralyzes you. I think that's the problem with anxiety. I think if it fuels you, which fuels me a lot,
Yeah,
but if I'm overwhelmed by anxiety, then I start to sink a little,
yeah,
and that's my my personal struggle. Actually, it's trying to find that balance, which I often do not find. um,
It's no balance.
but it's trying to find the tools to pull me out of that. I
Yeah.
think that's the you know
Yeah. And you've always been good. I mean, we've always been able to talk very candidly about just like how sometimes it just sucks. And sometimes you just need someone to reciprocate. Yes, it sucks. Like right now.
yeah,
I
the
mean, for me,
acknowledgement of it, to acknowledge it.
yeah, not to dismiss it because I feel like
Yep,
every major issue, political, social, just like this, it's because people gaslight you or they tell you, no, 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 just go out in the sunshine, go run, go. But sometimes, I mean, you and I have talked. I have a mental disorder that I cannot help myself, and I have
exactly.
chosen not to be medicated. And maybe sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I was on medication, but there are so many battles that many of us go through that we can't dismiss it. So all we can do is acknowledge, you know.
Oh, I feel you. I feel you, really. It's just the acknowledgement and having somebody that feels empathy towards you, knowing that a lot of mental health issues, you cannot control it. Some are born with you, some are due to trauma,
Yeah,
but it's part of you, and you have to acknowledge it. And yeah, finding these tools to help you out, and find somebody who perhaps also struggles, somebody who really understands how shitty it is
yeah,
to go through this. Yeah, because it's not all roses all the time, as social media sometimes portrays to be. It's not. It's
yeah.
not.
No, and I try to do my best to remind people who choose to follow me that like this is just the stuff I feel like permanently putting out, and I have the right to take anything down. You know what I mean? But it is a burden even with social media. Like it's such a burden these days, especially because you feel such a vigilance that you need to hold, that you need that the people. You know, there are times where all I want to do is cry when I think about these things, and I think about how useless that is, and to share, and that people are asking me, Asta, what do you think of this? Or and I have a duty, and sometimes that duty pulls me out of the darkness. You know, so
um yeah, it's a very strange world nowadays, but actually, after, I think, perhaps starting tomorrow, I'm going to do a social media break. I
yeah,
did one in March for a month, and it was just
the best.
a burden that was, you know it just felt so peaceful. I read so many books, which I haven't read so much as I read back in March. And I think I'm not against social media. I use social media, I use Instagram. But when you go down into this rabbit hole of just comparison and overwhelm of information, now I know, like we were talking just a few minutes ago about these tools and how to manage. Now I know that it could be a trigger for me to not feel good. So I know that I want to take a step back, and I will do probably July or even June, July. I'll try to be off of social media for a while,
Yeah,
center myself again as a human being, as an artist, and take a step back. And also, I noticed when I was off Instagram and social media, that I called my friends much more and I visit them.
yeah, yep. That's not unlike what I'm going through right now. I mean, doing this show, this is my main source of like keeping in touch. But after the camera is stopped recording, I'm still talking to people, and I feel like I've talked to more people now and made more of an effort than prior to all the shutdown because
Yep.
I'm very fortunate that I live with my husband and that I have a companion to talk to, but I also think it's important to stay engaged. And sometimes you can't tell someone's tone through social media. You can't tell, and I have so many friends that are being uprooted from where they are because they cannot live with inconsiderate roommates. They cannot,
Mhm.
deal with all of this upheaval. And people like you, people like me, and our friend Siobhan, like, we've been through so much in our lives already at this point that we have developed an understanding of the tools that we need. But some people, that's where you pass it forward. And so for me, I felt like this burden of helping people understand how trauma is something that will not shake off. Like, this is traumatizing everyone.
Yep.
So it will live with you even after the lockdowns are over. It will live with you because you will have been snuffed in a moment. It will live.
Definitely.
So on that note, I wanted to ask you the question I ask all my guests, which is, what message would you like to share with the universe today?
It's an easy one, Asta.
All right, let's get it.
Just 2 words. Just 2 words. More empathy.
More empathy. That's, I mean, yeah. We live in a very individualistic society, and I think that people have forgotten how to engage, and that those 2 words are everything.
That's it. More empathy. You know, more empathy. There's always 2 sides to the story. Just try to open up. Just be
Yes.
more open, more kind.
Yeah,
Empathy.
I agree. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Vera.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Lovely as usual, and I'm so glad that we did this. And please stay safe, okay?
Okay. Thank you, Asta. Take care.
You too. More empathy.